change the world? Start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride. It will encourage you to do another task, another, another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will turn into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. If by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made. But you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. The basket training or series of long swims must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit waters all 6 million. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark. At least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a nice neck, darts towards you, then summons all your strength and punch him in the snout, and you will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started 1150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 age. I was the boat with the tall guys. But the best boat crew we had was made up of the low guys, the Munchkin crew we call them. No one's over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys, from every corner of the nation in the world, always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone reaching the shore long before the rest of us. So training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, but your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flutes. Night quick training is referred to as Halloween. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and harassment, and 1 special day at the mud flats. The mud flats are between San Diego and Tijuana, where water runs off and creates a Tijuana snowmoons. The swampy patch of terrain will level and cold. It is all Wednesday Hell Week. To paddle out on the mud flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive this freezing cold, howling wind, and incessant pressure to quick police roads. The sun came set every evening. My training class, having been some egregiously fractured rules, was ordered in the mud. The mud consumed each man until there was nothing visible at our heads. The instructors told us we could leave with only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the pressing cold. Looking around mud flats, apparently substitutes for not to give up. It was still over 8 hours until the sun came up, 8 more hours, bones and cold. The chattering teeth and chirping moans of the training was so loud, it was hard to hear anything. Yeah, boy, really. One voice was also landed. Great yes. One point yes. If we can walk around, instructors with us with more time than the mud caps again. Was consistent. That's how that seemed. All over. The man leaving the so I repeat it. The lifetime will is an alpha. One looking out. We never question a lot. One change the world. You people. So if you want to change the world, still be able to tackle it. Watch out, watch terrible. The lights not too long. You take tests. Something like that. It's all things that never done. You do these things. The instruction and the churches that follow will automatic. They must hear. He change the world.
Awesome. So you guys should be able to, oh, someone said that the video is unintelligible. We're recording this speaker series tonight, and I hope you guys can hear us okay. I'm here with Jeanette Finicum at her home in Colorado City, Arizona. Very pleased to be with her. It's quite an honor. Our speaker series is designed to help you guys out there and rest of America to change the world in the small ways that you can. And we want to inspire you guys to change the world by hearing these kind of stories from folks around the country who have had to endure pretty severe experiences. So this speaker series is recorded, so if you want to hear it later, you can request it from us online through CSG or centerforselfgovernance.com. Real quick, before I introduce you guys to Jeanette, I want to tell you a little bit about how we came to meet. Of course, she'll tell you a lot more details, but last year I got to meet Jeanette and her daughter at their home in Utah. We did a level 1 class in their living room. And then her daughter moved to Duchesne, Utah, and one day after we finished the classes, we were in the library, and we were just sitting on the floor in the library, and I can't tell you how much that impacted my life. 4.5 hours with them. Jeanette doesn't remember even half the things she said, but I really beat myself up for not recording that conversation. It was one of the most powerful conversations that you could have experienced. And one of the things that really impacted me was when she said that after her husband's death last year, she started receiving pressure in many different ways from many different levels of government. One level in particular was with the state of Arizona in relationship to the foster children that they had been caring for. And she's going to give more detail, but the thing that impacted me was her Finnish sisu, when she said after this training program, and she went after her foster child license that they were holding back. And in Arizona, they say you can't work corruption of blood in the Arizona Constitution. And anyway, I'll let her tell you the details. But so tonight we're going to cover three things. First, her life before the tragic events last year in January of 2016, the day that the world changed her, and then how she is trying to change the world, like you saw in that Navy SEAL speech from that admiral at the University of Texas. So Jeanette, thank you for having us to your home, and thank you for taking time to talk to people from around the country. A lot of people on the East Coast don't know much about your situation, so when I do bring it up, they're like, boy, who, or what happened? Oh, I think I heard something about it, but maybe you could tell everybody here, what's going on for you personally, and with Lavoy, and some details about that.
Well, first, thank you for having me. Hello to everybody out there. This is kind of a new experience for me to be doing this from my living room. Kind of intimidating just a little bit, but I hope that you can hear me. First off, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about who I am. I am the wife of Jeanette Finicum, who was shot and killed on January 26, 2017 in Oregon. He was murdered by the state and federal officials that were there that day. Prior to that day, we're just normal, average American family. We were ranchers here in the northern Arizona area. We were doing therapeutic foster care for over 18 years for teenage boys. We were parents of 12 children. We're grandparents of 25. So we have a very large family. And we were very busy just with taking care of that large family. It wasn't until we moved to the ranch that, as all of our children got married and moved away and had their own homes and families and other places, our lives started to slow down just a little. And my husband began to read more and to educate himself more about the different things that were going on. We were listening to Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, we had cable at that point. And we were becoming more aware of what was happening in our world, in our country, because the past had been to where we were so busy, just like every American family, we're just busy trying to take care of the day-to-day, your job, your children, their sports, their activities, just getting through all of that we weren't really aware of what was going on nationally. And when we became more aware, he began to open more books and to educate himself and to try to understand what was going on and what did he want to believe, because there were so many different voices coming at you from different places. And I remember after he read The Creature from Jekyll Island, he loved that book. It opened his eyes in so many ways. He just kept talking to everybody about that book and about the Federal Reserve. I was still just in my zone of being mom, of taking care of the house and taking care of the children and the grandchildren and the boys that came to live with us. I really wasn't political at all. I was just holding down the fort in my own world. And so in 2014, when my husband went that day to stand with Clive and Bundy, he was one of the 40 riders on horseback. And that changed him again. He came home after meeting Clive, and after talking with him at great length, he understood that he too needed to reevaluate his own position on property rights and on land rights issues here in the West, and about the BLM and their involvement in his ranch, and whether or not did he need a supervisor to help him run his own business. And that was his stance. That's where he came to grips with it. And then I believe it was in 2015, he made a public announcement. He was so passionate. It was like something had taken him over, and he became so passionate and so outspoken, and it was so out of character for him in that regard. He was like that country boy that stood on the back wall and didn't interact, and he was just this quiet man, and then all of a sudden something changed him, and it was this passion and this drive and understanding of our freedoms and liberties disappearing right before our eyes. And he had not been involved, and he so wanted to make a difference and to be responsible with the gifts that God had given us here in this country. And so he really took stock of, where am I? Where do I stand? How can I, in good conscience, sign these contracts when I feel that they're an illegitimate organization, that they shouldn't have this power over me and my business and my ranch? And so he made that public announcement to no longer sign with the BLM, and that he could manage his own ranch himself. And I think that was in September of 2015. You know, and by that time, you know, another thing, I'll back up a little bit. In 2013, this was another thing that was coming along before the Bundys. He had, like I said, had this awakening. And he had this story that popped into his head. And he says, I've got this story, and I know that I can put it into a book form. And I know that I know I could help this cause of freedom by helping explain the liberties that were being lost, and the principles and the values and the morals of the society that is decaying in front of us. I know I have this story, and I know that people would, you know, resonate and would enjoy the story. And so within 6 months, he wrote this book. And so that was out there too. It had been published in 2015. And then, you know, the ride with the Bundys, and then his announcement with the BLM. So all of these things were happening all together. And so he had been traveling around promoting his book, but he would never talk about his book. He would talk about land rights issues here in the West. And he used that platform of his book to explain his political positions and to bring awareness to people about what we were going through here. The Dan sisters, the Hage family, the Bundy family, the Hammond family up north, Joe Robertson, in reference to a water issue on his private property. All of these things are being talked about. And it was New Year's Eve, and we had gone out onto our ranch, and it was really, really cold. And again, I'm the city girl who married the cowboy, literally. And but he always took care of me. He always made sure everything was just so, and I was always comfortable everywhere he took me. And he put up a tent. He put a propane tank in there for a heater, the whole bit. And none of my kids got this treatment, just me. But he taught them to tough it up, but not me. He babied me, and I so appreciate that. I so appreciate that now when I have to go out there by myself and I don't have him. But we were there New Year's Eve night, and we had rounded up the cows that day, and we camped out. It was so bitter cold. It was so cold that even the heater didn't kill the chill. And I remember having all these puppies with us, and we had to stuff a puppy in each sleeping bag because they would have froze to death had they not been kept warm with us. And the next day, we branded all of our cows and headed home. And I remember when we got home, he received a call from Ryan Bundy asking if he would like to go up to Oregon to the demonstration, the peaceful gathering that they were going to have for the Hammond family, and to give Mrs. Hammond some flowers, and to go to the city building and drop pennies or something to that effect. And, you know, he just looked at me and he says, well, what do you think? Can you handle the boys without me for a while? And he says, I'll be back in a couple of days. And I said, sure, go ahead. You know, I just thought it wasn't anything like the time that he was heading to Clive and Bundy's place, where there was this huge standoff between armed, tacked out BLM officers. It wasn't like that. It was just a bunch of people gathering to peacefully demonstrate and to exercise their First Amendment right to be heard and to assemble. And so I didn't think twice about it. And
during this whole time, from when before he changed as a person, and then he started becoming engaged because of his political concerns. He wrote the book. What's the name of the book?
Oh, the name of the book is Only by Blood and Suffering, Regaining Lost Freedom.
Okay? Only by blood and suffering regaining lost freedom. And then during that whole time, prior and then during when he awakened, you were talking to me last night about how for you were there with him.
Yeah.
You were just the status quo. You were happy. Life was getting slow. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, you have you as a married couple, you raise all your kids, and you get to a certain point when they're all getting married and they're leaving the nest, and it's slowing down for you, and you welcome that little bit of slowdown, and you look forward to the time that you get to spend together. And I was completely happy with where I was. I wasn't politically active. I wasn't reading the books that he was reading. I was still very, very busy and just doing what I needed to do. And but everything changed. Everything changed the day that, well, so much changed so quickly. You know, they took all the boys out of the home before my husband was killed. And so
You're talking about the foster kids.
the foster children, they took them out of the home the first week. And because it became very apparent after he got up there, and Ammon and Ryan and some other people talked to the group and invited them to go to Malheur. And that's when the boy first heard about it and then decided to go to Malheur with the group. And it became very public at that point. You know, I mean, it was splashed everywhere. And of course, the headlines were these white supremacist, racist, crazy white men up there taking over a government facility, armed militia, you know, every negative label that you could think of. They wanted control of the narrative, and they wanted to be able to tell the public exactly what they wanted the public to know. They didn't want them to know who these men were or why these men were there. They didn't want to hear the truth. I really believe that the media is a puppet for the power that be that is working the little Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. They are in cahoots, and the narrative is controlled by that little wizard, whoever that might be.
And prior to the tragic events, you yourself were being a mom, status quo. You were just
involved in my church, in my
involved
community.
in your church, involved in your community.
Yeah.
Life is good. Nothing's.
It was perfect. I was my youngest daughter out of 12 children. She was a senior in high school, and we were attending their games. And
right. And so for you, you've been traveling around now, so you've noticed the American people. Are they kind of in the same boat? They're just status quo. As long as I'm comfortable, don't rock the boat. No conflict. Life is slow.
As I have been traveling and speaking with different groups, it's hard for people to get out of their comfort zone. And when they hear about our story about how he was shot in the back 3 times with his hands in the air, how he was murdered for just exercising his agency to his right to free speech, and as we compare the different groups across the country that are doing the same, and there is no comparison. There was no violence. There was none of that going on. And when people see and compare, they're in shock. They're in horror. They can't believe that this has happened in America. And they question whether it's even accurate or true, because the media, once again, has not been forthwith with the story or given it as much airtime as they do all of these other radical groups across the country. And so they're in shock, one, and then when they hear it, you know, they're happy with the way their life is going. They don't want to rock the boat. And then the other thing that I find too is, what do I do? Tell me what I can do. Tell me how I can help. And people want to help. They want to do something, but they don't know how to make effective change. And neither did I. Neither do I now. I'm still trying to figure that out. But, you know, from the day that he was murdered, my whole family and I have just felt like we cannot stop. It's kind of like in that video that we just watched, where he's telling those men, if the shark is coming at you, you stop and you punch it right in the snout. and stand your ground. And that is a really good analogy of how I feel. I feel like I have to stand. I have to stand my ground and to continue to tell my husband's story so that the people of America understand what is really going on and what their government is capable of doing.
So the videos of boys killing was played over and over and again in the media, but how did the world change you from that time forward? Because you're telling me the stories of how you didn't have time to grieve because everybody was up at you right away. How did the world change you from that point forward?
Well, like I said, I had finally gotten an opportunity to go see my husband, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I went up.
You're talking about before January 26th.
Before he was killed, yeah. And I got to spend about 3 days with him. And I was headed home Monday, driving back from Boise on Monday. And he insisted that I leave because our daughter was playing basketball. It was senior recognition, and she had a game on Tuesday, and he wanted to make sure that one of us was there, or I would have probably had stayed. And so I'm driving home Monday, and I remember speaking to him and had a nice conversation, and I don't remember much of Tuesday morning, but I remember the game started about 2 o'clock, and we're in a little town, and we're sitting there, and all of it, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law and my son and my daughter and is playing the game, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are all there. And somebody comes up to me and says, there's something that's gone wrong at Malheur. Have you heard from Lavoie? And I remember thinking, I just left. Everything's fine. There was no threat. We were able to come and go. There was no barricades. The only armed, tacked out men were the FBI agents and the barricaded airport that they had taken over and the school that they had taken over. It wasn't as portrayed in the news. My husband took me to breakfast. We went to church. It was nothing like portrayed in the news. And so I'm thinking, no, I hadn't heard anything. All I know is that he was going to go to John Day to speak to 350 people that were waiting for them. And so I went to go call him, and my phone was dying, and I had went out to the car and got the charger, and there was no plugs in the gym, so I'm sitting in the hallway with my phone plugged into the wall, and a call comes through from Lisa Bundy, and she is hysterical.
Lisa Bundy is
Ammon's wife, and she's hysterical, and she's telling me they killed the boy, and screaming in the phone. And I remember my brother-in-law was there, and maybe he'd been there the whole time, but it was just horrific to find out that way. And they had our family come from the gym, and we kept trying to get verification, and nobody would talk to us. They would just forward us to an answering machine. They wouldn't answer any questions. We went to the police station to see if the local officers could help us obtain any information, and we couldn't. It wasn't until 2 days later that somebody came to my door to officially announce that Lavoie had been shot and killed. By that time, I was already on my way to Oregon to pick up his body. But from the moment that he was murdered, our whole life became a fishbowl. The media, the world wanted to know, for the moment. And then the spin that they put on the story and the things that they take and print, all the lies or the mistruths or the lack of any kind of real reporting. It was, at some point it became laughable, but in the beginning it was so painful to see the man that you loved and spent so much time with lied about and splashed into the headlines and mischaracterized. And for such a good person, he was such a good man, and he gave to everyone, But anyways, my life turned into one of where, you know, I was just a housewife and mother and grandmother to someone who had to step up to the plate and start speaking out. It had to be more involved with the government. It had to start taking over for all the different things, whether it be the ranch. And here I am, the city girl, being in charge of a ranch now and having to round up by myself. But there was just a whole list of things that you just wouldn't expect that came at all of us. I can remember all of my kids being here, and it took all 8 of my daughters and myself to manage the phone calls, the news media, the interviews, plus plan a funeral, collect a body, just one thing after another. And you just have to, you are on like automatic. You're just going through the motions to get through each and every day. And I saw a little thing, I shared this with you yesterday. I saw a little news clip on someone's opinion of the mother of the young girl who had been mowed down, and how they were critiquing her and thought it was inappropriate for her to be standing up and making speeches so soon after her daughter had died. And I thought, wow, how dare that person critique that poor woman? How dare him even presume to understand what that woman is feeling? I could relate to her because she's thrown into this spotlight that you, in the moments that you're grieving, and it's not private. You have nothing private anymore. And I think she's a very brave woman to be able to stand up and say what's on her mind and to say what she needed to say. And I know that, 18, 19 months later, things are still not slowing down for us. But I'm just now starting to do more grieving, if that makes any sense at all.
I think for most of us, we can't empathize with what you described, being thrown into the public square. Your husband standing up for a second. You're expecting things to just be normal, and then all of a sudden, one day, the world comes in and changes you. The media reports a certain way. There's so many questions, so many people vying for your time. And then, of course, now trying to figure out how do you guys manage this beautiful place by yourself. So we can only empathize come from your story and from the videos that we've seen. But now I've been watching you guys for since then, and what is it you're hoping to do to change the world now? Because the boy had his change. You saw all that. You were the mom.
It's like
the status quo, and now the world changed you because of the tragic events, and then going through this major evolution in terms of just. You were talking to me about trying to figure out what is my vision, what do I do with my life, what is my purpose in life, and so how do you hope to change the world?
Wow, that's such a big question, isn't it? You know, like you said, I watched my husband evolve, and since then, now that things are starting to slow down just a little bit, and I've been managing all these different things and had to do things out of my comfort zone. I mean, oh my goodness, just this right here is totally out of my comfort zone. But I have felt driven. I have felt driven to not be silent. And I think more of us need to be driven or have that push to not give up and to push forward even when it's hard. We can do hard things, right? And I trust in my Father in heaven so much. He has been such a comfort to me through all of this. That is the person that I turn to the most in prayer. And it has brought peace. And I'm grateful for my faith that I've had that to help me along the way. But as I move forward, you know, like we were talking last night, I was thinking, like I said, things are slowing down just a little bit and I'm having more time to think. Because before it was just one thing after another, from one place to another, to the next event, to the next whatever, to go round up cows, to brand them, get cleaned up, fly to DC, come home, go do more cows, do this. It just has been an unreal experience. And now I have time to think and ponder, and I'm going, who am I? What am I going to do with my life? I was a mom. I am a mom. I am a grandma still, but that was my life. Now all my children are grown and gone and graduated. I don't have any foster placements at the time, but I'm about ready to take some new children in. But who am I? I have to rediscover who I am, and I don't even know where to begin with that. Everybody says I'm now an activist. I'm a speaker for liberty. Well, holy cow, I still don't see myself like that. I don't see myself like that yet. I see myself this past 18 months as a woman who wanted to make sure that people knew who my husband was, the real boy, the man who loved God and his family and his country, the man who had principles and integrity and who was willing to stand. And that's what's driven me and what still drives me. So I'm in a discovering mode for self. And when I figure it out, I'll let you all know. But I don't think I'm ever going to be normal again. I don't think I'm ever going to be quiet again. I found a voice, but I have to do my homework, because it all begins with the individual. We have to educate ourselves. We have to know the workings of our government to understand it in order to be effective in its change when it needs to be changed. And so I guess that's where I'm starting. That's why I've taken the couple of courses with CSG. That's why I'm getting involved in that way, because I need to start with me and with my family, and then with my community, who I brought here today. And
that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I live in an area where there's lots of little communities. So I tried to pick people from each little group and bring them in together so that we could spread that change and that effectiveness of what we're learning into all the different communities surrounding me. And I know there's power in one individual. I know we have power. And I know that we can make the change necessary. And so I think I'm going to keep moving in that direction. That's all I know about. When I figure out the rest, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Part 2, I don't know.
That's great. Well,
Mark, may I break in with a question?
Of course.
Thanks. Jeanette, this is Jim O'Connor down in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Nice.
And our group, the Arizona Republican Assembly, is going to be looking forward to having you as one of our speakers at our National Federation of Assemblies conference in early October. So
nice to meet you.
To share that story. My personal condolences to you. Your husband is now in paradise, and he left you with all the work. So we're here to help. We're here to spread the. I have a question additionally. Excuse me, I'm a very passionate guy, and that's an incredible experience you've been through. I wish it on no one, really, no one. But has there been any change with Bureau of Land Management and these other ridiculous, unconstitutional federal regulatory bodies called agencies since Donald Trump became president? Is there any hope, or is it same old, if you even know? I don't know.
Well, that's a good question, because, I have had a lot of hope with President Trump coming in that there would be some change. And the way I've looked at it so far, what he's been in a year, he still doesn't even have his whole cabinet in. He's got one thing after another on his plate on a worldwide scale. Zinke has been out here on the West interviewing different people and seeing the monuments. But I have not seen anything trickle down to our level, which is pretty, low level compared to all the different things that they're worried about. I think we're on the bottom of their totem pole of urgency. However, I feel that the Bundys, when Sessions came out, he congratulated the authorities there for handling the case the way they were handling it. And I thought, for not wanting to make or have an opinion one way or the other, because he said, I don't have an opinion, he certainly gave an opinion. And without really looking into what was happening with the Bundys, with the judge and the court trial, I think we're on ignore at this point. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if they just want to sweep it under the rug, let it go away, it doesn't fit into their plan, or maybe Trump doesn't know anything about it. I don't know. But I haven't seen any real change. The BLM itself, it has been a roller coaster with them. In the beginning, I didn't hear from them until May of last year, the first contact, and they wanted to have a meeting with me and ask me some questions. And I said, well, let me get with my attorneys and I'll get back with you. And so I speak with my attorneys, and he says, well, Jeanette, just get a list of the questions so that you can come prepared to their meeting. And so I get back on the phone with the representative from our local area and gave him, I said, if you'll give me the list of questions, I'll be glad to meet with you, and then I can come prepared with my answers. Because a lot of the things I had no clue about. I was not involved with my husband's business. I held down the fort at home. I was the official chuck wagon. When they went out on horse, I brought the food. And, every once in a while I got on horseback with him. But he did the work with the boys, with the girls, and my kids. And so I had no clue, the paperwork, anything. And from that point on, they refused that meeting because I had an attorney. They bumped it up to their attorneys, and from that point on, all they have done is obfuscate, delay, one thing after another. For instance, after that, they said, well, the permit died when he died. We pointed out that in Arizona, the law is that it's community property, and therefore I'm the heir. And so that lease is mine. They said I was not the legal owner and that I had to prove that I was the legal owner, even though Arizona law states that I am the owner. And so because he was murdered in Oregon, I had to wait for a death certificate. They didn't want to give me a death certificate. And when I finally started calling and I threatened my attorneys, then all of a sudden, miraculously, within the 30 minutes of that phone call, they found it in the computer and sent it to me right away. That was May 31st, 4 months after my husband's death. And it took another 2.5 months because this is a yours, mine, and ours family. There is probate, there is some issues there. It took a while for me to be made personal representative of his estate through the legal system in order to be able to represent myself with the BLM, because they were insisting that I be made personal representative. And so it was one thing after another. And so once I got the death certificate, was made personal representative by the end of July. I was moving my cows off, had to create a feeding lot, and because I had no summer range, it was a mess. And probably go ahead.
Did they put on the death certificate cause of death, murder?
Homicide.
Or did they cover that up?
Homicide.
Homicide. Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so with the feeding lot and all the cost of feeding 150 head with hay every day, I had generous people throughout the country bring truckloads of hay to me, mostly out of Utah and out of my local community here. It was amazing, the generosity of all of the people around here. And so I get through all of that. And in the meantime, they're saying that we owe $12,000 in trespass fees because he went on 2 or 3 weeks early prior to his death, murder. And I'm going, well, if I'm not the owner, then why should I pay his fees? Well, if you want to be on, you need to pay the fees and resolve the problems. I said, okay, here's a check. Well, you need to fill out your own application. You can't just go on. And I'm going, well, I'll fill out my own application. Well, if you fill out your own application and pay the fees, then you're going to have a new environmental impact study. And I'm going, I can't win for losing. And so throughout this whole process, my attorneys are pointing out to them that they have their own regulations that state that when a permittee dies, there is a 2-year period that the people who inherit it can operate the business as usual. Yet, when asked why I'm not able to use that particular regulation of their own, they say that's because we don't do it this way. We want her to do this. And so every time I would comply, they would find something else for me to comply to. And finally I said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm done jumping through these hoops. And I want to proceed differently with my attorneys. So I had to get new attorneys to kind of move forward in a more aggressive manner and trying to get them. And it has just been, now they don't even respond. It's been almost a year that they don't even respond to my attorney's emails or text messages or letters of any kind. We did notify our Senator Flake, his office, put a little buzz in their ear. There has been an email sent asking for, guess what? They would like to meet with me and have a meeting with me. So what it has done in a year and a half is come full circle to the first thing that they wanted to do, and that is to have a meeting. Not to resolve any of these issues, not to address the application, not to address the fines I was willing to pay, and still have the check that I initially wrote out that they refused to take. None of this. And so here we are, it's a waiting game. Let's see if I can force Mrs. Finicum out of business. She has no summer range, she has no winter range. Where can she put her cows? If it wasn't for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law allowing me to have my cows on their range, I would be out of business. I would have nowhere to put these cows. And that's what they want. They want me to go away. They want the men that are on trial in Nevada to be locked up, never heard of again, to be made examples of, so that nobody again steps out of line. They want them to be made an example for the rest of us. They want me to go broke and belly up or cave in and stop this so that nobody else does this to them, that they're too afraid, that they're afraid of losing everything they have or their cattle herd. So they'll comply and they'll do exactly what they're being forced to do. And I am willing to fill out an application. I am willing to pay my grazing fees. I want to operate my ranch on my place. I have a deed. My husband and I purchased it. I'm still making the loan payments on that. When I sell calves, it pays the loan. It is real property. It wasn't a gift. I didn't ask for permission from the BLM if I could buy this. I bought this from another rancher, excuse me. I bought it from another rancher who bought it from another rancher who bought it from another rancher. It is real property that I purchased. And so our Constitution guarantees us what? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, owning property, having our own happiness in life. My husband was willing to stand. He was willing to stand for others. He was willing to put everything on the line. When he made those videos and he was taking his stand, he knew the risk he was taking. The risk he was taking in that moment in those videos was the risk of losing his ranch. the risk of losing his cows and his dream that he had worked his entire life to have. But he felt that he should stand up for that principle. And so if he was willing to lose the ranch, I need to be willing to fight for it as well. And so a lot of people say, Jeanette, just stop. Just, sell the ranch. Have a little bit of money for yourself. You have nothing. I can't do that. Because like he said, he's left me with a lot of work to do, and I will see him someday. And I would have to answer to him for that. But he's going to have to first answer to me, because I've got a list. I've got a list.
So things are still kind of open with the BLM.
It is.
But they want to have a meeting.
They want to have a meeting. We've come full circle.
What's the, we heard recently in the news that the FBI agents were indicted at the scene of the event on January 26th.
Right. There's a couple of things I want to talk about with the FBI. So
Okay.
Remind me if I get off track.
Okay.
That was very encouraging. From the beginning, it was announced that there had been some tampering with evidence, and that the Deschutes County, who had done the investigation, independent investigation, I don't know how, but they were not involved in the initial incident, found that there was an FBI agent who had been lying about firing 2 shots at Lavoie as he was exiting the truck with his hands in the air. And after finding out that he had been lying, the evidence, the shells or casings also came up missing. So tampering, there's 3 counts of lying and 2 counts of obstruction of justice, I think is what the term is. It was removal of evidence of some kind. There are 4 other FBI agents that are currently under investigation for helping to cover this up. So there is more to be found out, and it'll be interesting as we continue to pursue this. I was grateful for the grand jury that came down with this, and I'm grateful that he will be standing trial in February, and I hope he is held accountable. We shouldn't have those types of people in law enforcement. There's a lot of good people who dedicate their lives each and every day and put their life on the line for each one of us. We need honest and upright people serving in those positions.
What is the implications of the FBI agent being indicted? Is it because did he shoot first?
He shot first. And that's a really important point. He shot first. And in what I've been told by experts is that there's protocol. And if shots are fired, then that puts everybody on alert. And therefore, it's free to protect yourself. And so it's open fire, for lack of a technical term. They're able to shoot. When they hear shots fired, then they're able to shoot. And I believe that the FBI shot intentionally to alert the Oregon State Police that there was a threat. Now, my husband you can watch those videos for yourself. You can clearly see his hands are in the air. As soon as he opens the door, as the shots are being fired, his hands are in the air. And so I believe that put the Oregon State Police on alert, and they felt they were righteous in shooting him in the back. And I don't know how that could be threatening to anyone when their back is turned to you. So I don't agree with their findings. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about in reference to the FBI is backing up a little bit. As my daughter and I, first it was Tara and I that started speaking out, and we were traveling around the country. In July, we had been notified that there were FBI, BLM, and law enforcement from Oregon traveling down to Colorado to speak with the police chief and the sheriff's department prior to our visit there, and wanting to raid that event. And thank goodness for the chief of police that told them no. And the reason we know this, we didn't even know until after the event. And it was someone was talking to the friend who had organized the event, and she said, "Did you know that there was this memo that went out to the city council?" And she says, "What memo?" "Well, about that sovereign citizen terrorist wife that was coming to speak in our community. did you know X, Y, and Z, that they came down and anyway. So we didn't even realize that the FBI was following me to events and asking to raid them. I'm grateful for a chief of police who stood up to that. And it has been verified that they have followed me to 2 other events that I know of. I just take it for now that they're listening every time I go anywhere. And I just operate on the knowledge of knowing that I'm doing nothing wrong, but exercising my First Amendment right. I'm not inciting violence. I don't want anybody to be radicalized in any way or do anything irresponsible. And so I just don't even worry about them anymore. But that is something that
I would encourage you to keep telling the truth and keep reminding them and those listening agents, and maybe something will happen with their conscience.
I hope so.
I like to think God has a special place for bureaucrats and errant government officials.
I would love to think that too.
Just my personal 2 cents.
So the BLMs, that's coming up. There's this current thing with the FBI agents. What about the voice book? Now, I heard you told me last night that you guys have edited the version 2 and it's coming out on September 15th or something.
Yes, I've been working for almost a year with some friends. They've been wonderful to help me to edit and just type editing, because my family would be in an uproar if we changed anything about that book. And so we haven't. We've, the cover and the same pictures, but we have added a epilogue and a prologue, and added 33 pictures that kind of bring my husband to life and to show you what kind of man he really was. And I don't want Malheur to define him, because he was so much more than just the man up there for the 20-something days he was alive up there. And so we've added some family pictures to the book. And so the second edition will be out September 15th. I'm really excited about that.
Well,
Jeanette, if I could suggest, maybe you could bring a case of those down to that conference in early October.
You bet. I'd love to.
Great, thank you.
and where can they go to get a copy?
Oh, yes, you can go to our website. We have One Cowboy Stand for Freedom. This is a website. All of this was done when my husband wrote the book. He had set up the website. We designed it. He put all those pictures on there and wrote the first piece. He designed the book cover. I remember the day that we went out into the mountains here in Echo Canyon and took his horse and Diamond, our dog, she's around here somewhere, and spent the day just shooting about 300 pictures for the cover. I had so much fun with him that day. So it's very personal. He was hands-on his book. The little eagle that's on the cover, he commissioned a young 16-year-old from Fredonia to draw that eagle. It's such a beautiful picture that I have in the bedroom. And it became his symbol because he wanted to put, and he made a flag. It says, defend the Constitution, original intent. And that's what he wanted his book to teach that. So that's what he was doing with his book prior to ever meeting Clive and Bundy. So it was something that was already stirring inside of him, and it just went the way it went. But onecowboystandforfreedom.com is the website that you can go to.
onecowboystandforfreedom.com. Okay. And what's the name of the book again?
Only by Blood and Suffering, Regaining Lost Freedom.
Okay. Awesome. Well, does anybody have any additional questions for Jeanette before we sign off?
I do.
Okay. Could you say your name? Could you say your name?
Sure. My name is Karen Jerome, and I don't want to really have a question. I just want to say hi, Jeanette. And I saw Miss Kitty was on the top of the couch. Tell her I said hi.
Karen, it's so
And,
good to see you.
You too. I love you.
Love you
And
too.
for those people listening, I do want to say that Jeanette is the strongest woman I have ever had the blessing to meet and to get to know. And I love you, and I'll be standing with you always.
Oh,
Always.
thank you so much. And she's just an example of, when LeBoy was first murdered, I don't even have the words to describe what we were feeling. And the headlines in the media and what people were saying about him, and the Facebook post, he deserved it, good riddance, just the awful things that people would say. The mail that we got, some was pretty horrendous. I received an anonymous note from someone with just a DMV printout of my car and my address. I don't know what they were trying to say to me. I know where you live and I know what you drive, maybe. I don't know what pushes people to do things like that. And so our first initial feeling of the American people was not a very positive one, because we were getting such negative feedback. But as Tara and I started to travel and to meet all these good people that came to hear our story, they're like, Karen, they're like all these wonderful, wonderful patriots across this whole country that are doing the best they can in the areas and wanting to do more, but don't even know where to go or what to do, huh, Karen? It's like, where can I go to be effective? And where can I make effective change? Tell me how to do it. And that, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I've had to be able to travel and be invited to all these places, because I don't feel the same anymore. I feel very loved. My family feels very loved, and there are so many wonderful people that want our America back. The America we knew. We want her back. We just need to know how to do it. It starts with us, though, doesn't it?
You got to fix yourself first before you can fix your country. Well, Jeanette, our speaker series.
Mark.
Yes.
Hello. This is Adrian. Hello, Jeanette.
Hello.
I'm a CSG student in Thurston County, Washington, and have been heart and spirit with your whole family, many of us here, since this happened. Read Lavoie's book, took him totally in, his thinking so clear, the gift to us all so complete. I had a question about the FBI. Shortly after Lavoie was murdered, assassinated actually, there was almost a forensic study. There was a videotape of the whole thing that was pieced together. I can't even remember who did it, but it was more than one person, and they were patriots. They actually took it apart scientifically to prove forensically that what the FBI was saying couldn't possibly be true, and it was videotaped. What happened to that?
It is still out there, and I have seen it, and I have given it to my lawyers, but we'll have to hire our own expert to make an analysis of the original video, and we are moving forward with the wrongful death. I do have an attorney. I'm so excited about that because that has been a challenge too within itself. Amazing lessons I have learned in 18 months. But Marcus Mumford and his associates in his firm will be my attorney for our family's attorney for the wrongful death.
Oh, okay.
So we're really excited to have Marcus on board. He is passionate about what has happened.
He's the. Can you explain?
He's the attorney for Ammon and Ryan. Ammon, I should say, up there in Oregon.
Also, his attorney in Oregon he was the attorney that was tasered
Right.
For asking the question about
Right,
whether or
right.
not
And so I want to also congratulate you on the website. It has everything in it that anyone could want to look at and develop. And thank you so much for that. It's one more thing to do, whether you did it yourself or your loved ones did it, or all the love that's coming toward you as well. So thank you for that. I know that many of us have gone to that website, looked at every single thing, developed it, looked at it, studied it for ways to carry it further. And just know that you've got a big back, and a lot of people at it. So thank you, and God bless you for each and every moment of every day that you continue in such an amazing journey. Thank you so much, and your whole family.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. And, you know, that just reminds me of what I've heard from so many people. You know, again, when this first happened, it was so negative because all you hear is the media, and the media doesn't want America to know about Lavoy or what really happened up in Malheur. And people will tell me, I heard what happened. I read his book. I got on YouTube after I heard what happened and watched his videos. He spoke to me. I know your husband, you know, the testimonies that have come to us has comforted us along the way, that he is still teaching people now. It is amazing how his voice is still being heard, and people are resonating to the message of freedom, of liberty, of having the courage to stand. You know, that was one of the things he said, wasn't it? It was, what was the phrase? It matters how you stand, is what he said. And
I have to tell you that it's a living thing that Lavoy has planted in all of us. I'm sure I personally planted a peace rose on our land in honor of Lavoy, to be reminded every single day as I pass that, what I'm doing, what we're doing. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Well, does anybody else have any other comments or questions? Awesome. Okay, well, so our speaker series is done by donation. So people put whatever they can. Some people give more, some people give less. But we wanted, on behalf of everybody on the call and those who couldn't be on the call, we wanted you to have this for you to be able to use with your however you see fit.
Oh,
Okay.
that's so, thank you very much. That's so generous.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Well, guys, so our speaker series, next week we'll have Scott Rasmussen. He is the guy of Rasmussen Reports, and he has written several books now, and he's actually come out and made some editorials on the recent Charlottesville riots. Of course, today I've been out of the loop, but I'm sure there's been quite a number of stories across the country related to various rallies. So our country has a lot of work to do, a lot of maintenance obligations, and I hope you guys will join next week with him as he also is trying to change the world. And then shortly after that, we've got some other folks who've been affected. We're working to get some more amazing speakers for our speaker series. Really like to encourage you guys to continue in your KTR training course, and at the same time, do your best in all of your ways to change the world. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We'll see you at the next speaker series or the next KTR training course. Whatever you do, keep the Republic. Good night, everybody.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.